Welcome to Stock Therapy with PennyQueen. The following video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, as I am not an investment advisor. I'm a shareholder in Aduro Clean Technologies, and it is part of my transparent and public loan portfolio. I have not and will not be compensated for this video, but feel free to message me with any questions I may have left out or catch me on the free PennyQueen Discord to continue the conversation. Thank you. Okay. Hello and welcome to Stock Therapy with PennyQueen. Today we have Aduro Clean Technologies, and representing Aduro is CEO and founder Ofer Vicus, as well as VP of Strategy and Business Development, Abe Dyke. Thank you both for being here.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, let's just jump right in. Last week you guys had third-party validation. Can you talk to everybody about what that means for shareholders?
Yeah, thank you. Abe, do you want to take a stab or you want me to do?
Oh, sure. I can speak to third-party validation. So as part of our RTO, we identified numerous or a couple of milestones that would allow us to facilitate the RTO. And the first milestone is what we've accomplished now, and that includes us getting a third party to review the technology that we've developed. It's novel, it's new, and it's different. So it warrants a new set of eyes having a look at it. Internally, we're very confident that it would pass, and we've been working on it for 10 years. So what third party validation does is indicate that we're not drinking our own
Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid, exactly. That there's somebody else and Dr. Paul Charpentier had a look at the work that we were doing and indicated that the science and the process behind it is sound. And so that's our third-party validation from the technical side. Maybe Ofer, you can talk a little bit more about what that means as part of the RTO.
Yes, it was in short when the investors. We made the deal with the investors, and of course we were, it's uplift battle to because we're young and small and had to show people what we can do. The agreement was just to break it into stages, and the first stage just to show somewhat of a proof of concept. Now we investors need that, but we did not need that. We kind of knew what happened, but investors did need that, and so we had to comply and do this type of exercise of first party validation. But we didn't stop. Through that time frame, we worked with the external potential customers and are working to bring them in regardless the third party validation. In other words, it was somewhat in our control. This variation there of which we can talk, API and why this API, why not lower API, but all of that was just to confirm and to say, yeah, we've checked the box, move on to the next milestone, which is part of it will be, for example, participation of customers in our work, because we thought initially if the technology is so fantastic, there should be, some kind of an answering. So we put our words, our actions where our words is, I guess, where our mouth is, and we're trying to execute on it. Or at least dying trying, as somebody told me.
All right, perfect. And that's another part. When I looked at Aduro earlier, I believe it was July when I first started looking, and in August when I met both of you, the share structure and that the way you wrote the reverse takeover as a shareholder, I have to say that I really appreciate where it's really the onus is on you as a company to actually perform for shareholders before your equity is unlocked in these stages. So I really appreciated that, and especially that you continued forward progress while working on this in parallel. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
so now, this video is likely going to be seen by existing shareholders, but hydrochemolytics is pretty complicated. So can one of you explain it like I'm five?
Well, we'll definitely give it a try. We're practicing it every day, and hopefully we are improving it, but we'll definitely give it a short try. Hydrochemolytic basically means that we're doing a chemical deconstruction of molecules instead of breaking them apart. For most of the time, if you inject heat into material, you basically explode it. Now, when you break things, you have to later fix things. So most of technologies that you see today, doesn't matter in which range, are dealing with the consequences and trying to solve problem to improve that. So how to do separation in the front end, so when they break stuff, they more or less be in the same range, or how to maybe solve issues after they're breaking it, maybe do a little bit more of post-processing treatment. Water allow us with a chemical agent and with some catalyst and at a lower temperature, allow us to be a little bit more selective. So we're at the end of the day, we will produce the same product, which is a commodity, but we will have less cost on the front end, less cost on the back end, and in between, and this is the magic, a lot of capability to take impurities. So even though for most of the time people are trying to stay away from those impurities, we have the capability to increase those impurities on one hand, and maybe even produce different type of product on the other hand. Lots of flexibility that, in other words, it's just a way to develop different business model than whatever we know today. And that's so fascinating, at least to us, because it opens new opportunities in general. Was this a good one, or you?
No, that's.
I was going to say, like, if you're trying to visualize, and I've been using this recently as a way to explain hydrochemolytics. Think of it like a car that's at the end of its life. And think of that like a big molecule, like the complete setup of the car. You've got the mirrors, you've got the tires, you've got all those different parts. Well, all those different parts are molecules that frame up this big macromolecule, which is the car. So the traditional approaches are to use lots of energy, thermal. It's a big hammer, smash it, and it doesn't matter what the outcome is. You're just smashing it to get it apart to its little parts. And then later on, you would go and reuse those parts for different things. Whereas what we do is we deconstruct it. So we take that car and the molecule that represents the mirror, well, you can use it again, that molecule or that mirror, for what it was initially intended to be. Use it somewhere else. So we're deconstructing that macromolecule back to its constituent parts, back to its monomer. And so if you're thinking it visually, that's how we're doing it differently. And we're doing it with less energy. So we're not having to go and use that 600 to 1,000 degrees of heat. We're not having to go and use hydrogen to go and stabilize that. And once we've deconstructed, we're not having to go and rebuild those molecules the way that the traditional approaches are. And so that's why we think that this process is unique and different, and has, like Ofer says, so much flexibility for us to be able to do what we want to do pre and post processing.
Okay, so I'm hearing more finesse and efficiency. So instead of a sledgehammer, it's more like a scalpel.
Yeah, scalpel or scissor. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Abe, you're a technology and its potential applications. I know you have 3 distinct market applications. Can you fill us in on what those are?
Yeah, certainly. Our research began with bitumen and deconstructing the asphaltene portion of bitumen, and that's where most of our research has gone into. We've pivoted that into also having a look at renewable lipids, canola oil, soy oil, corn distiller's oil, and using the same technology platform to be able to convert those. So learnings from that research better informed what we're doing on the bitumen side. And then we got lots of inquiries about what can be done with rubbers and with plastics and some of these other macro complex polymers. And so we began doing work in 2017 on that feedstock, and learned very quickly that the 3 have a lot of synergies and inform what is happening on the chemistry. And in November of 2020 is when we submitted our last patent application that wrapped those 3 together. And so we see that we've got these 3 market verticals. They're distinct and different, but they have a commonality. And that is this understanding of what happens with hydrochemolytic, the deconstruction of these macromolecules. So in bitumen, we're addressing the asphaltene within bitumen and how to unlock its value. On renewables, we see pathways for us to create renewable diesel, sustainable aviation fuel, and indeed renewable chemicals, bio-naphthas and biopolymers. And then certainly on plastics, where we're getting a lot of attention currently is, how to deconstruct these waste plastics that are out there so that they can go back into circularity, back into their base monomer, so that they stay out of landfills, out of oceans, and they can be used again.
So what makes this technology unique in terms of commercial use?
I'll take a try here. I think what we see is the ability to do maybe the same type of product that anyone else is doing on a smaller scale and a less at a less cost, and with a little bit without some of the necessity that others need. And so that gives you in the realm of the plastics, for example, then right there you cut off negative issues such as transportations and collections, and you add those costs in order to do something. But it also opens up a whole new type of business model that we think is viable, completely viable, where we are speaking to businesses that has a sufficient amount even to cater to our current minimum size of unit. And so that speaks to the fact that we are turning at the plant what considered to be a cost center, a profit center, and they can earn money out of this waste, and it will never leave the site. So in other words, it will not be imposed on the already really saturated waste stream line that is going out there. So I mean, we kind of opens up opportunities that has not been there before. And the other item of it is that it speaks to the flexibility to do different types of product and to deal with different types of family of feedstocks. So you can do single type of feedstock, let's say polyethylene, which we are contemplating very well, but we can do the same for polypropylene and polystyrene, and we can mix them together later. So it gives you far more variety to work at a lower cost. I mean, I guess everything that you would hope, I think, in my view, that technologies will do, this gives a broad perspective of the capabilities.
Okay, and it is more efficient than pyrolysis?
Oh, yeah. In almost any way. For first and foremost, it can accept more product and more feedstock, diverse feedstock than pyrolysis. It operates at a lower temperature. So plastic that is otherwise hard to process, for example, food packaging. And it operates at a lower temperature. It requires less, I'll say, support systems such as hydrogen plant, because we're taking our from organic hydrogen from either bio-based material or something that is out there even in the waste stream. So overall, you are producing a commodity at a lower cost and at a higher yield. So that speaks to the ability of the systems to perform financially well.
Right. And the yield, I think I heard, maybe I heard Abe talking before about the efficiency with polyethylene. I know there's a lot of different plastics, and I don't expect everybody to have the 7 primary types memorized, but I know that's one area where pyrolysis, a lot of that material is wasted. Abe, do you remember what it is for polyethylene?
Yeah, certainly. So the work that we've done on the plastic side is on polyethylene, and the work that we will be doing in 2022 will continue to be on polyethylene. So at bench scale, what we've done is converted the polyethylene, and converted it into a 90% liquid yield, meaning that the liquid product that we're getting is a C5 to C50 type of carbon product, and it's in liquid form. The remainder is a small amount of solids that is a waste stream, and then gases. And the gases on that we see as a part of a parasitic load. So we still require, to generate some heat in our process. We would use those gases in our process. So the net life cycle analysis means that we get a really high yield of liquid product that can go to market, and we are not. The ultimate goal for us was minimize the amount of gases we're producing. And in pyrolysis, the goal is to actually convert to a gas, and from the gas back into a liquid or a solid type of product. And so we are not subjecting to such extreme thermal loads only to then come back. It speaks back to how we are deconstructing as opposed to destroying and rebuilding. So
Okay.
we could give some numbers there, Abe. I mean, so the 90% liquid yield is on this setting was all closer to, let's say, diesel. But again, we have flexibility in the system to change the carbon distribution, so it will go through, it will produce more of oil that is base chemical for production of new plastic, for example. And the 6% that Abe mentioned, the gas, out of which 40% were just CO2. So in the total, it was like 2.4% of the total operation just as CO2. The rest were gases that could came and return back to the system. We did a little bit of the math there, and we estimated it's about 60% of what the process needs. So a makeup energy of about 40% will be required. But it speaks to the level of efficiency that we are seeing. And if you can do it in a small scale somewhere out there, then it takes also away the negativity, the transportation. And if you have capability to change different product from fuel to, you can assume the fuel is worth less than oil that is otherwise go to production of plastics. Then okay, you'll increase the system a little bit, but you don't have to 10 times increase it. You see, 3-4 times you would increase it to meet, economic size for fuel. And if you will work on oil that goes to circularity, then it's a little bit different business model that, improve the ROI, smaller system. It just gives you a lot of flexibility to play with, basically.
So I'll be the first to admit that I'm a bit of a nerd, especially when it comes to chemistry, but I love the flexibility of this, and especially that you're working with polyethylene right now, as that's, for those that don't know, that's plastic bags and bottles and a lot of packaging. So that a lot of nuisance plastics there.
Yeah, we call them a chain growth polymer. That is just, lots of it's under the families of all the polymers that really are hard to process. That's encompass PE, PP, PS, PVC, all rubber, all of those that we can handle. Now the process to handle them, this is what we've been developing, but I think we're closer right now to being able to come up with the processes, demonstration processes that will do a single type of product very close. And there is already an interest. When we announced our work with Switch Energy, Abe got cold call from at least 4 or 5 others immediately asking him, what are you doing on polyethylene? Because we want to hear and see if that fits to what we need. And that was just a small announcement, among our investors, nothing in the news, no big, imagine if we'll take it outside and show it. So that's what we feel.
Right. Well, I appreciate not taking all these big ideas outside as we all build our foundation and shares. So, and I should disclose to any viewers that I am a shareholder and I'm not being compensated at all for this interview. But I see a great value in getting the information out so that people understand what it is they're investing in. So you've already touched on this a little bit, but can you talk about the competitive advantage of Aduro versus all of your competitors out there?
Yes, so it immediately comes into mind, which subject would you test? Is it the renewable, the plastic, and the bitumen? And I think let's the obvious, I guess, elephant now in the door is in the room is the plastic. So let's just focus for a minute on this. We can talk later on bitumen and renewable if you like, but it will be good to focus on one. And because the technology allow us to do what we say it's allow us to do, then the advantage is that you could work one-on-one, in comparison to centralized location that require, such a larger scales and, security of feedstock and what have you. And I think we'll be in many ways more efficient, and we will cost less, and we will still produce a commodity product that has a certain value. Notice that most of those technologies today work in the realm of where you have some kind of a regulatory environment, because somebody has to pay for that, because there's an economic sense to the technology to work. I'll give an example. I think in Europe, for example, it's very good they're the most advanced, and the waste feedstock, cross $300 and $400 a ton after processing, where material in Mexico worth less than half, if any, just absolute garbage. So the lower the value of the feedstock, the better your profit, right? Because you at the end do commodities. So Aduro, because of the nature of the technology, can also work in where other technologies cannot work because of that lack of regulatory, which means we can operate in small scales, and we see ourselves operating small scales in areas where right now the competitors are not even there, not even fighting for the sweet. And there we will still produce a commodity that has an international value, but feedstock that worth much less in a system that is already cost less. That's kind of a leave in the pack in a way on that side, with I think quite a lot of capability to cater to a customer. So somebody that is doing food packaging, and we are now testing food packaging in our lab, and we'll continue to do that. It's quite a complex material, but we can, once we'll answer that type of, we'll know what to do, we will go and sell that type of solution to food packaging companies, for example. So it speaks to the variety of options that you have, which gives you a lot of competitive. Other guys, you hear today in the news that they need to secure the feedstock, that they need to do large deals with organizations to make sure that this feedstock, when we offer profit sharing to an organization, we take a little bit, but the organization owns the waste already, and now they see the return of it. That's what we're all about. That's what we're trying to do, which speaks a little bit to the potential of the technology.
Okay, I like the model. And now you talked before about not hydrolyzing, and in some of the other efficiencies. How
hydrolyzing we do, but not
adding.
Not adding what we call molecular gas, hydrogen from a molecular hydrogen. Yeah, you're right.
So how should this impact the CapEx and OpEx of your operations? I know I can't ask for, I know you don't have the answer to what is everything going to cost, but
I think significantly. So the estimating, saying significant is just not enough, but maybe we can structure. If there was an announcement recently of, I won't say the name of the company that has been operating near where we want to operate in Brightland, and not just that they need a pre and post processing treatment to their pilot, they also need a hydrogen plant nearby to kind of take care of material that they need to take care of. We will have the same, we will process the same output without that hydrogen plant. When, rather than getting hydrogen plant, we will process probably more PET, so waste, and we'll get our hydrogen need from that resources, that waste. So a little bit more organic, if you will, and finesse in the activity.
I think that it speaks to what is novel and unique about hydrochemolytic is that we are not requiring a hydrogen from a gas source. What we are doing is actually using a bio-based material, or in this case, the example that Ofer gave is PET. So polyethylene phthalate, you've got a glycol type of material that's in there as part of the waste stream. So if we're using that as that hydrogen donor or hydrogen equivalent, so we're not requiring this complex equipment that's generating hydrogen. We're not requiring the capex on that, the opex on that, everything that's associated with hydrogen. We're mitigating that and
disappearing.
And the competitor technologies have a minimal viable size because they're requiring this ancillary equipment. When we don't require that ancillary equipment, that means that we have a smaller size equipment, and that we can co-locate in many more places. And that means that our capex goes down and our opex goes down. So this is where we see that competitive advantage. We will have to go and build out the total system.
All that is left is to prove it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, beyond our current pilot. So
yeah. I guess all that's left is to scale it.
Yeah.
That's Ofer, can you talk about your current and planned partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, we are in the last 4 or 5 months, we've been very busy introducing the technology as is, and everyone appreciate that we kept it secret. What we want to do in the next, in 2021, we want to release, and probably there'll be a time frame where, you know, we can't control how fast we'll get hold of those agreements, but we have already in our, I guess, pocket 3 or 4, more than 3 or 4, and what I call advanced discussion towards engagement one way or the other. And the hope is to do every 2 or 3 months to release you know, a material, an event where we will, you know, partner with someone on what we call a research program, a paid research program, because and that will be the beginning of the journey of such customer to move on to, you know, beyond that, to help us to move into a pilot and then to build the profile, which will dictate then the business model, as you know. But in 2022, we do anticipate to announce some of those partnerships coming into and you know, paying research and collaborating with us to do that type of work. Initially, we're looking at the PE because this is where right now the most advanced and you know, where we are currently is that it's quite shorter time frame to the market, but it will follow with other materials such as the PE and polystyrene. We just have to find the right partners to work with them.
Abe, do you have anything to add there?
I think your question is around partnerships, and I would just highlight that we currently have Switch Energy as a partnership for agricultural waste materials that are collected in southwestern Ontario. So the work over the next 12 and 24 months to look at bringing that to a 2 ton a day pilot. And so we're really excited about the work that we're going to be doing with Switch. They have lots of experience in collecting that material, this agricultural waste material. It's predominantly a polyethylene material. And they have lots of experience in also cleaning it and mechanically recycling it. So they currently bring it to market as that type of product. And where we will work with them is to step a little bit further into their process and then move it from a mechanically recycled material into a chemically recycled material and bring it to market from there. So that's our Switch Energy project. And then the other project that we announced is with at Brightlands Camelot campus in the Netherlands. And that is a longer term initiative that seeks to build a 10 ton a day pilot facility. And
at minimum, it will probably be larger, but at minimum.
Yeah.
But the goal there is to not just focus on the polyethylene material, but then diversify into other of the plastic streams. And so you can see how some of the work that we're doing with Switch and the work we'll be doing at our new lab in London will inform what we're doing at Brightlands. And Brightlands is this incredible facility that incubates collaboration with industry and with financing and with you know, supply agreement, offtake agreements. You know, it's a great opportunity for us.
Then Lucy will call you. If Lucy don't see this video, she's not allowed to, you know, that we have a help. I mean, we can't tell you. I mean, it's a joy to work with Brightland. They've been in the last 3-4 months been working really closely with us to introduce us to organizations that can, you know, take us forward. And there'll be announcement this year for those collaboration as well, I anticipate. So it is, you know, on the go, and we are pressing every gas we can to make it happen. It's just the way, you know, when you build such project, you have a little bit more to do, especially it's in Europe, it's not here. So, but it's wonderful to see that.
Yeah, so really on Brightlands that the project scope and definition is still to be finalized, but there's so much opportunity for us, and it's the right type of place to incubate what we want to do there. But I think the takeaway there is that it's you know, it's a long-term engagement that we're targeting, and so it may take us a little while longer to, you know, cross the T's and dot the I's in our engagement, but you know, we're really enjoying the work that we're doing with Brightlands.
Yeah, that it's such a unique setup that they have there. I mean, an ideal almost incubator, you know, everything you need, kind of one stop for developing technologies like this. So
Yeah.
I was very excited when that came out earlier this year. I think it's one more thing that a lot of people didn't fully digest. You know, part of it, you know, the market's not great right now. I think we all know that, but again, there seems like there's just so much information to process that some of those really, really important gems just kind of move on by. Ofer, how much cash do you have right now, and what is roughly your monthly burn rate?
Yeah, so we will go on based on what we published right now. So according to our financials on August 31st, right, Abe? That's August 31st will be
That's the latest.
we recorded $2.2 million. Our burn rate is changing between 150 to 180, depends
Okay.
on the activity that we're doing per month. And important to say is the loyalty of some of our investors. We have about $2 million in warrants not being exercised, and when we need, we do exercise them. And so, you know, we feel quite comfortable. There is a question of when, you know, when do we do the raise? Do we issue the press releases and, you know, wait and you know, leave a little bit on anxiety and do what we do, or do we do the raise now and announce it and it doesn't matter, you know, forget about the press releases? But I feel at this point of time, it's quite under control. In other words, we're not doing any stupid items we're just making a progress and putting things under control and you know, looking at the market, and we'll make decisions sometime soon about what's going on.
Okay, perfect. And Ofer, what are your plans on the next 12 to 24 months?
There are three items that are really important to the investors to look at. And the first one is the installation and establishment of our new site in London, Ontario. We are working to build one that will give us the space that we want to work independently, but more importantly, it will cater to accepting customers and working with customers, so future collaborators. So it's not just about you know, coming into a new place, but it's about working and catering to our business model. This lab will support that. Second item that we're working, you know, really strong and aggressively about on it is the establishment of the pilot. And we're targeting 12 months from financing, but yet to be seen. It's very, very aggressive. Just, you know, there's a lot of work to do, and those will vary, I guess. But the team is up to it and hungry to prove himself. So the next big item is really just putting a pilot there, as Abe mentioned, with Switch Energy, which will process about 2 tons per day of a single type of material, maybe polyethylene. The third item is just continue our engagement with the possible customers to mature that and to translate them to this type of collaboration, which will demonstrate the seriousness of the activity and, you know, the fact that there is interest in the technology at different stages, and then that will help us also dictate and define the future business model that we want to pursue and investigate.
Okay, perfect. And now this one, Abe, I know you've spoken to this a couple of times, and this is something that I find particularly interesting. So in talking about your current market cap and the market cap of some of your competitors.
Yeah, low.
Yeah, we certainly, I've stated before, and as is Ofer, we think that our market cap is low, and that when we compare ourselves to, you know, those who are identified as our competitors in the space, it's
without mentioning names.
Well, I thought I'd actually mention some names because they are publicly listed companies and they play in our space, and they are doing the same thing that we are doing, mind you, with different technologies, but that's where we compare and contrast. So Pure Cycle Tech, company in the US, incubated out of Procter & Gamble, you know, they're a $1 billion plus company, and they are certainly ahead of where we're at, but they had to follow the same steps we did in you know, developing the technology, getting it to pilot, and then to commercialization. They are at the stage where they're now building that first commercial plant. Some others that would be out there is, you know, Agilix. If you have a look at what they're doing, some great work, novel technology, a new approach, and Plastic Energy and Quantafuel in Europe. So those are two technologies and companies who've incubated out of Brightlands
Well,
Institute,
there's
Brightlands
a very
Chemology.
large organization. Quantafuel is a BASF, and Plastic Energy is SABAC. So, big, large organization that's supporting them. And so we feel independently, we're up to the game and just demonstrating, maybe not one-on-one. We don't need to be, we'll just be somewhere else and we'll do our thing. But we definitely have a reason to be there and to operate.
Yeah, I think it's how to compare it to them. So they have significant market cap, and they, are putting new technology into the space. Most of them are still a variation of pyrolysis. There's lots of research and development that's headed into pyrolysis, and we think that's great. There's a significant volume of waste plastic that is out there, and so we can all play in this sandbox where we think that we will eventually win out. Is that we have a better technology, or a technology that will definitely compete with these other companies that are there. Since we are not using pyrolysis, we're deconstructing these molecules in a more efficient way than they are. So in terms of comparison of where their market caps are, they have much higher valuations of where we are currently. And but that, for our investors, they should really look at that as what to expect from us over the next 12 and 24 months.
I see that as an upside, being able to look at competitors that have, that are working in the same space, that may have a different setup.
Yeah.
But, I've said this many times, but I don't make money by investing in companies that are fairly valuated. I like to be there before the market. Yeah, before the market recognizes what they have. Ofer, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just should learn to when to barge in, but I think it is fair to say that as much as we look at them as competitors, I think it will also be fair to say that at some point of time we should look at them as peers. And they may use us, or we may use them. So I don't think we will solve all the problems of the plastic of the world when we're talking about plastics. And I think there'll be time and place for those existing technologies. And so the market will amend itself, and we will find our place. But I also absolutely think that there is a place to be near some of those and collaborating with some of those as we're moving forward. The challenges are quite big, and they, there's no silver bullet. There's one that maybe do a little bit more than the others, and so the others will just amend it, and will do. So I think at the end of the day, the market will dictate some things, but I won't exclude collaborating with some of those what we call today. We just need to be at the size. I think we need to prove ourselves. This is what it's up to us to make sure they understand that we're there, and from that point, it won't be surprising to see that we're collaborating with some of them.
Okay.
I might just add on to that these examples I just provided, they were all on plastics market, what we're able to do on plastics, and we have two other market verticals that we can also address. And so what we're really talking about is a novel new technology that is taking low value molecules, low value carbons, and bringing them back to the market as a higher value. And so, even on the renewable fuel side, or renewable polymers, renewable chemical side, there's significant opportunity there. And there are large players in that space that are doing really well. LanzaTech, if you have a look at what they're doing, they're getting enormous attention. And then on the bitumen side, partial upgrading and addressing the diluent requirements in Canadian upgrading, it's a significant opportunity for us. So, for the investor that's looking at what is the potential opportunity in the company, there's significant upside on what our valuation is today.
One comment before just to this point. A lot has been discussed in comparison to pyrolytic process. There are other technologies that are, closer to where we are, and named hydrothermal, catalytic hydrothermals, and they owned by companies such as Lacella or Mura, and they have their own process. It's very different to our process. They are water-based, and we feel we have some advantages in the cost of structure, in the capital cost and emission that we are producing. So in comparison and such, but we should recognize there are very respectful players that are out there that are doing things that are just out of the realm of pyrolysis today, and they're out there and showing the world what they can do, which is really impressive.
Perfect. I
Which is,
appreciate that.
think, yeah, I think it speaks to just the enormous opportunity in this space. We are all looking at what can we do to bring these products back into circularity, and that's going to require innovation. And right now is that time to, bring companies new innovations to market. And I think that some of the announcements that, for example, Agilex made, if all of their projects came to fruition, they'd only address about 1% of the total waste plastic stream. And so there's lots of space and a lot of needs still to be addressed. So.
Yeah, just talking about the sheer scope of, if you just look at plastics, like you said earlier, the sandbox, it's massive. If you look at bitumen and the market, again, it's massive. I mean, each, everywhere you go, renewable oils. So the fact that you've developed a novel technology and that there's so many different applications, I know that sometimes is a problem within itself, is there's so much that we can do with this, where to start first. So I guess, can you give me the timelines and repeat the scale on R3B and R3P, and maybe tell people what that your naming nomenclature is on that. So
Go ahead.
You want me to go with that, Ofer?
Yeah, for sure. We know everything by heart. Like there's no surprise. Nothing will happen yesterday.
Yeah. So internally, we identified, the staging of our technologies by R number, vision number. So R1 is the small scale, milliliter scale in the lab batch reactor size. And we've done that for, HBU, HRU, and HPU. So for all three of them. And so then we scale from there to R2, which is continuous flow, meaning that it's in liters per hour scale, and it's running continuously, no longer in batch scale. And then the R3 starts to move into the tons per day scale. And so we'll do that for all three of them as we begin to scale them up. And so where we're at with R3B, so we've done first milestone. So R2 for bitumen, we'll continue to do some more work with running through R2 with different configurations. But as we announced with our XG press release, we've already begun doing the engineering work on scaling up R3 for bitumen. And the beauty of the work that we've done with bitumen is that it correlates really well with what we have to do on plastics. And so the engineering work on R3P is also happening at the same time. On the plastics development, we are currently constructing R2 for plastics, and the work related to Switch Energy is our R3. So the Switch Energy project is scaling up to R3, and that's aiming towards the latter part of the year and into the 2023.
okay, perfect. What do you think your most valuable vertical will be?
This point, the plastic takes a lot of the oxygen, and you mentioned, we don't even mention other application, and R&D will kill us. But the same apply to rubber and waste tires, and the same apply to lubricant, waste engine oils. And so those are industries by their own. We just don't how far you can reach. We want to focus and create a short-term revenue, a long-term revenue path that will change everything. The whole dynamic of the company will be changed, from which we will be maybe a little bit more master of our own kind of a fate, and then could drive things the way we feel they should be.
As a shareholder, I definitely appreciate that and going down one path, but I always want to remind people that those other ones exist, and they're huge. And so I would love to get to be able to go forward, 2 or 3 years in the future and see where we are. But unfortunately, I don't seem to have any magic abilities. So let's see. Now I have a technical question that was sent in, and it says in the third-party validation report, it was validated that Aduro was able to upgrade heavy oil from 14 API to 19.5 API. Can you explain why you didn't use a lower API in your continuous flow and third-party validation?
Well, it's a fair comment. Maybe Abe, you wanna? We should have answered that in the press release, by the way.
Very true. Yeah.
Pay attention to that. I don't know. We were so hung up on the first milestone that but here you go. I mean, Abe, go for it.
Yeah, certainly. We've been working on bitumen for 10 years, and so we've used very low API product and tested it numerous times in the batch reactor. And so part of what we were doing with First Milestone is actually through the engagement of a potential customer. And so we obtained material from the potential customer, and it was at API 14. And so we were using material that we were provided and demonstrated that we could upgrade it from their specific material. Now this material has some more lights in it that we would not have as part of our process, because we would remove the lights in a pre-process that is not part of what we're doing in First Milestone. And so the short answer is we can definitely use lower API feedstock. It's what we prefer to use because this is where we create the most value. But as part of First Milestone, this is material that we were provided. And along with COVID and all the lockdown restrictions and supply chain, we weren't going to switch in the middle and move to something else. We used the material that we have, and we moved towards getting First Milestone completed as soon as possible.
Okay. Perfect. And next question is, how confident are you that you'll be able to handle mixed plastic types? And if so, how much pre-sorting would be required?
Kind of a detailed technical question, right? But based on what we see today, I call it the red lights. We see, we see the possibilities because we understand how each polymer react to our work. Now we have to investigate it, and we have to complete the work on it in order to be able to then later process a mixture of plastics. But I think at this point of time, we don't have red flags that says we will not be able to work on complete mixture of plastics. On the contrary, it is more related to certain condition and optimization, what you do in a certain stages that we will need to do, and this will take some time. So this is, if our desire to do that, then it strengthens our needs to show revenue as early as we can get, because we just don't want to rely on investors' money all day long and just say, okay, this is wonderful now, but we can do the other thing and so forward. As for the answer about the pre-sorting treatment, conceptually it will be less than what currently is required. So there's different off-the-shelf pre-sorting that we can literally buy, but I think there is a little bit more of a custom work that we need to do just to understand what we're handling. Basically, when you're taking solids of all kinds and you want to feed them into reactor and understand this is waste, this is nothing pure. It runs into all kind of an issues, and part of the issues that you see companies are struggling out there is that the concept that they can tackle everything, and then they find out that they can't, and then they have to kind of start working their way around. So it feels like we will need less, significantly less, but it will be too early to quantify how much at this point of time. It's in order to give some comfort to the investor that ask, I'll say that, while we will do that, we will aggressively work to increase revenue in the company from applications we know require much less pre-sorting, so we could invest ourselves in the other.
If I might just add onto that, I mean, there are companies currently who their entire business model is premised on receiving a fairly clean, homogeneous stream of material that is mechanically recycled, and then they chemically recycle it and go to market. And that is Pure Cycle's example, right? And so we can follow that path as well, so that we do not need to focus on, it is the goal of the company to be able to get an unsorted stream of material. However, in order for us to get to path of revenue, we can see that there are paths of just processing single streams so that we can then get to revenue and deploy the technology earlier.
I think that feeds right into extended producer responsibility.
Exactly.
And that's something that really isn't, I think it's just beginning to be talked about in North America.
Yeah.
So do you want to fill people in on what that is? And
yeah, certainly there are many jurisdictions that are starting to have a look at extended producer responsibility. In Ontario, since 2016, they've begun to develop the framework for it. And it was only in October of 2021 where the Blue Box program framework started to be developed. And there are now producer responsibility organizations that have been identified, who are these organizations that represent the producers. So these producers of plastic materials, of any Blue Box materials, will have the responsibility for taking those materials and bringing them back into circularity. So what extended producer responsibility does is remove the responsibility from the municipality, who is currently taking care of all the waste, whether it's garbage waste, organic waste, Blue Box waste, recycling waste. Municipalities are now dealing with it, and it's coming out of taxpayers' dollars that municipalities take care of it, and including the landfill, for the life of the landfill. What these frameworks are looking at doing is moving that framework so that the producer is responsible for the cost of that material, and there's tracing that material from its production right to its life cycle and getting back into circularity. So these frameworks are only starting to be developed currently. And so an organization like Aduro and our technology, we see it as being co-located at a material recycling facility. So if they are separating materials and identifying the largest value of materials identifying materials that can be mechanically recycled and sent to market, because that's the largest value, or single stream polyethylenes, for example, that could come to Aduro. That could be an opportunity for us. So, as these frameworks are being developed, we are going to engage, with Canada Plastics Pact and other associations like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and others to get a better understanding of where we will fit in, so that we are ready to engage with those those producers who have the responsibility and are paying for these products.
okay, perfect. And I've got a couple more questions that were submitted through Discord. It asks, how effective do you expect HPU to be versus HBU? And is it easier to upcycle plastics versus bitumen?
Oh, man. Wow, tough questions. I don't really compare them. The process of, it's understanding kind of the mechanics of how to evaluate the economic model of bitumen upgrading is complex, and it's a very, very different in many ways, because it's involved already established process and activity that is out there, and you have to kind of find your way, because you can imagine that many of the organizations put a lot of money over the last 30 or 40 years in operations that you have to adjust to and look into. On the other hand, the work that we did on plastic is just fresh and new. So we spent 10 years on bitumen, but there's a lot of work that we need to do on the plastic. So the comparison wouldn't be fair. But I can say that from what we see from economic perspective, this is the information that we have on a single stream product such as polypropylene, polyethylene, polystyrene, we see economic viability from 20, 30 tons a day units, which is really, really nothing, simple, small scale, hundreds of barrels, of units. If you want to compare them with their ROI of anywhere between 3 to 8 years, where you run, probably 5 years in general, really, really strong. And where this is real. This is what we do now. Now we are shifting our attention to finalize our economic model in bitumen, which has different complications. So we solve the problem of maybe bitumen upgrading, but there is item concerning ethanol availability of hydrogen equivalent that we need to use. Ethanol, methanol, price, market price. I mean, and there is all kind of a consideration that needs to come into mind, such as the one that the government just recently been doing, which increased the price of biomass in general to the roof. And now, what is the timing? Where would you like, the pile of wood worth 10 times more than it should be at this point of time? Maybe you will do that type of business model in 2-3 years when things will come down. The nice part, I think, that is relevant to us is that we do have some flexibility around to play and cater between those applications, which gives us additional flexibility.
Okay. Perfect. Well, then next, go ahead.
I was going to say, between the two of them, like Ofer saying, they are two separate markets, and one of them is big, it's slow, it is looking for innovation, but it's going to take time. We've got experience on bitumen and doing that, and we've developed relationships, but they take longer. Whereas on the plastic side, there's a lot of market pull. There's so much draw to say, hey, do something with plastic today, and there's lots of flexibility to want to explore everything. So we're seeing that plastic is going to have a much quicker draw than bitumen will. They both have market opportunities, but you'll probably see plastics taking a lot more of the airtime in 2022. That's not to say that we're not working on bitumen. We definitely are, but it's probably just going to be a little slower. And like Ofer says, there are market dynamics that are associated with that. If you're today, where's oil at? $83 a barrel. That's different than it was, 12 months ago. So.
All right. Well, this next one's related to HBU, and they're asking, would there be more profit using tech like Aduro's HBU to remove the bitumen and then flow pure higher API bitumen versus purchasing diluent, transporting, storing, blending, and then flowing the mix to the Gulf?
Yes. So the short answer is that's what we feel. We feel that there is an economic model there that actually offer to reduce the amount of usage of diluent in the market. We should separate between us as a company that has so far from what we see has economic model to do that, and maybe do a few thousands of or I don't know what will be the size, the eventual size of the operation that will do from solving, and that will be economical, and we will do that, I think, from solving Alberta's problem in total. So in other words, canceling all the need for bitumen in all the need of blending from the pipeline. I don't think that is the case. There's issues concerning the volume of material that you would need to use otherwise to do your work. I think for the company there is an economic model there, and the company can be profitable and do what she's been doing. But the hope that we will take on hundreds of pipelines and complete Alberta's problem at one time, that will be a little bit far out to give us.
So it's a really big problem.
It is a big problem, and I think we will be taking part of this activity. So I think on an economic scale, you will see, if I'll take 5 years from now, you will see Aduro process bitumen and saving blending and operating on commercially and earning money out of it. And it's a matter of what I call it glycerol equivalent that we're using in our process, and it's more related to what's available at the time. And as you know, a lot of it is commodities. So ethanol is commodities, methanol is commodities. So they have price and value. So we'll have to deal with that when it comes. It's a little bit too early, but we do see economic model that we can work with.
Okay. And that, I think a lot of people don't really understand what diluent is. So just correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but when you have oils are thick, like crude oil is very thick. Diluent basically makes it less thick so it can flow in a pipeline, but it has to be removed at the other end. And I believe the oil companies are charged a dilbit tax on both ends.
Yeah, it's simply it's just a blending material. It's just like you mix water with let's say honey, or it doesn't do anything to the chemical context
Just
of it.
makes it flow.
It just makes it flow a little bit, and so you have to push it in. I don't think it's been returned. I think it's been used and consumed because there's a lot of work around it. But in general, there is local production in Alberta to produce this light hydrocarbon. They act as a blending tool just to physically transform this bitumen out. And there is some import as well, of course, and Canada is managing both of them. Yeah.
All right. And so talking about that and how it could really reduce transportation costs. Mm-hmm. That leads me to ask, what are the ESG benefits of Aduro?
Are we again focusing on the bitumen or the renewable or the plastics? The plastic is fairly easy to demonstrate. Yeah. The bitumen is a little bit more, we can demonstrate it, but I think it's less visible than, let's say, than the because we have to kind of demonstrate the economic model that associate with that. In terms of the two sections, maybe I'll answer for one, and Abe will answer more. I think Abe wants to answer more on the regulation that associate with the ESG. My context of the ESG is not related to the regulation, is related to the ability of operation that will use our technology to do certain things that are good in general to the environment and for the people that the society that is working, that are benefiting from that. So in that context, if you look at a territory that is, assets of plastics are being assembled, and so the land is being cleared and they're not transport, they've been processed on site, and the value of the land could be changed, and the people that are doing it now, normally they are, suddenly there is a little bit more work around it, and when you produce product out of it, so there is a better well-being. So I will take that type of approach towards the ESG. I believe Abe is complementary with respect to companies kind of a regulatory or mandatory approach towards ESG, which I'll let him discuss it right now.
Sure. So ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So we definitely can play in the space of what are we doing for companies who would use our technology in order to reduce their environmental footprint. On social, one of the areas that Ofer's talked about previously is that if we were able to go and deploy our technology in some more remote locations that, say, for example, island nations are importing so much from, and everything is packaged. What happens with all that packaged material? That packaged material ends up in a landfill on an island, and there might be better value as a resource from that material, and that creates jobs, and that so there's a social aspect of that. On the governance side, I think we as a company probably don't play so much of a role on the governance side, deploying our technology for others, but internally, as we mature and become we are a publicly listed company, and so we will be addressing what our ESG goals and direction is, and we'll provide more guidance on that, towards next, probably a couple of quarters from now, when we get more visibility into what we're doing.
Okay, perfect. And our very last question is, how much capacity do you have internally? Basically, how much work can you handle, and do you have plans for expansion and hiring?
Yeah, well, all the tough questions today are, because we, I don't know, that's okay. We're growing, I say, rapidly. We are, we're just now hiring some more people. We are expanding the lab, and we are working aggressively to move and establish a relationship with Brightland, which will give us an additional horsepower in terms of research. And we even extracting out some of our current, I'll say, operation, particularly the flash drum, probably to a service operation that will work outside of where we are, because we have to expand and we have to meet those demands. So it's the company is under steroids right now to do everything that I just told you. And it's wonderful to see it. It's very hectic, but it looks healthy. There is some logic in the chaos.
All right, perfect. Anything else you want to say to investors? Anything we didn't cover?
Abe, you have things in mind?
I think we covered a broad range of questions. It's really good. I guess for investors, just have a look at what we're doing and who our competitors are, or our peers, I suppose I should say, and look at what the opportunity is for once we move to the next stage of maturity in the company and maturity of the technology. There's significant upside on what we will be able to do, and just watch for what we're doing. So keep an eye on us, and lots to come in 2022.
Perfect. I'm excited. Thank you both for joining me. Have a great day.